That might cause problems. That's a lot of pain. Going back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the North Platte City Council meeting here on Tuesday, July 1st, 2025. And of course, it's 5:30 p.m. and we are here in the City Council chambers. Calling the meeting officially to order, we have an invocation by Pastor Daniel Ramsey of Our Redeemer Lutheran Church, please.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious Lord, Heavenly Father, in a few days, you know that we will take a few days to remember the sacrifices made throughout the ages for freedom, but in particular, those that led to the birth of our nation. And we do indeed owe a debt of gratitude to those who paid so dearly for the liberty that we enjoy today. It's something that many take for granted, but we can see that there are always threats to our liberties from around the world. And we ask you to guard and protect our nation, those who serve as peacekeepers throughout the land and, well, for that matter, around the world. Lord, we know that good government, peace, and freedom are really gifts from your hand. And as we never want to take for granted the freedoms we have, we ask you to bless our city commission and all those who serve in our community. Guide their administration and deliberations by your good and gracious will. And as we prepare to celebrate the freedoms we have in this land, may we also never take for granted the freedom that we have from sin, death, and the power of the devil through the sacrifice of your Son for our sins. Keep us always mindful of your good and gracious will and your great love shown to us through his ultimate sacrifice on the cross for us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Ramsey. Current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall at the back of the council chamber. Meeting procedure: the public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and address. Please address the council through the mayor and limit your remarks. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired to public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. In the awards, accolades, and presentation section, we have an exciting award tonight, and it is for the Police Call Center. Let me just read a little bit about it. The North Platte Police Department earns award for dispatch excellence. The North Platte Police Department has been recognized by the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, the IAED, as an accredited center of excellence, ACE. There's a lot of acronyms in dispatch, apparently, for emergency medical dispatching. The North Platte Police Department is the 354th Medical Accredited Center of Excellence in the world. IAED is a standard-setting organization for emergency dispatch services worldwide. Accreditation and subsequent reaccreditation from the IAED is the highest distinction given to emergency communication centers, certifying that the center is performing at or above the established standards for the industry. Centers who earn A status are the embodiment of dispatch done right and have demonstrated strong local oversight, rigorous quality processes, and a commitment to data-driven continuous improvement. Accreditation is truly a pinnacle achievement, said, oh boy, Christoph, I'm going to slaughter this last name, Chwajka, probably, Accreditation Board Chair of the IAD. We applaud the dedicated call takers, dispatchers, and leadership team at the North Platte Police Department for their commitment to quality and for meeting the high standard that few achieve. We know their community can count on these first responders to do an outstanding job. And we have a large plaque here. Okay. Pretty good size.
Yeah.
Melinda, would you come up and get the plaque, please?
All the way up there?
Yes, please. Right here in front of the camera. Okay. There's a lot of you here for the 911 center.
My crew. So
Who's answering the phones?
it-
Yes, bring them all up. Or we'll get as close as we can.
all of you.
Why don't you stand up there and get the gentleman in the wheelchair up there?
Can I?
Yep, just go up there. Yep, go up there so we can.
If my administration is a huge support in this group, I think we should come up as well. It takes a team to run that.
Okay.
What are we doing?
Find appropriate location.
We're not used to being in public.
I'm going to ask you guys, after I take this picture, to hold for a minute so that we can get your proper names to go with this, okay? Just hold your place after we do this. Okay, give it a second, get my notebook back. Have your notebook.
We can applaud though now.
We can
can't
applaud now. Okay, there we go. Thank you, everyone. Our community is a safer place because you guys work so hard. Thank you very much.
Front, water, sir.
Thank you.
Common spelling.
Yeah.
Okay, back.
Oops. I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me.
That would be you.
Melinda Baker.
I guess in my head, we'd already done it once today, so it just didn't hit me.
Okay.
Amanda Quinones. Quinonez.
M-E-Z. And Patrick Emil, M-C-N-E-I-L. M-C-N-E-I, 1-L. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, guys.
Evidently, I failed to say roll call. So, Angie, roll call.
Here.
Di.
Here.
Bowles.
Here.
Lucas.
Here.
Garrett. Flanders.
Here.
Here. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any city council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. Number 1A, approve the minutes of June 17th, 2025. B, approve the mayor's appointment of Nick McNew as a city representative on the Chamber of Commerce Board. Motion by Garrick, second by Nisley. Calling the question on the consent agenda, please. Consent agenda is passed. Item number 2 requires some further modifications to the contract, so it is pulled, as well as item number 3 also pulled. Item number 4, adopt the resolution and approve the addendum to amended redevelopment contract for the North Platte Mall project, along with approval of all related actions.
I move to adopt the resolution as presented in council material and approve the amendum to amend redevelopment contract for the North Platte Mall project along with approval of all related actions.
Second.
Motion by Bowles, second by McNew. Okay, Judy, do you have pictures?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
not to interrupt, but may I just ask to recuse myself from this item due to the potential for conflict of interest?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, there you go.
There we
We're
go.
already up there.
Okay.
There's just some pictures of some of the improvements that were recently done. I just went out and took a few today, so.
Thank you. Since it's kind of relevant to this discussion, since we were looking at making an amendment to what was an amendment, or addendum to an amendment, excuse me, I thought it would be relevant to kind of show what some of the things that have been done since we last spoke on the District 177 property. So Judy, go ahead and show us what you've got there.
So that first one was kind of a curb area. This is another curb area with a large cement that's the entrance. This would be going north towards Phillip. Let's see. Whoops. Go back again. Okay, there's another large curb area. This is north of it's the coffee shop, Seven Brew, kind of that area. And then as you're looking on the north of this page, you're looking back towards TJ Maxx. They're right on the corner, I believe. We just saw that one. And then this is another area, this is south of the Ashleys, where there's some concrete that was just recently poured. So you have a little bit better access as you're coming around that corner. And then there's some in the back lot, which really isn't the most attractive area. There was a lot of potholes, so they went in and put some filler in there to fill up some of those potholes. So there's a couple pictures there where they've cleared up some of that area, so you can actually drive through there without falling into a hole. So I didn't take a ton of pictures, but those are what I kind of took today, looking at some of the improvements that have been done. So
Okay, thank you. So what's being proposed here is in the last version of the contract that we had with the District 177 developers, there was item number 2 or 3.08B, which required them to establish a contract with the city of North Platte prior to or by May 1st, 2025 to resolve the drainage issue that would have been created by creating a new building or a multi-use building that was discussed during this in our last discussion about this on the property that's generally kind of on the southeast or directly to the south of where the movie theater is. And the item in the contract really just said they need to create an agreement with the city. However, it's my understanding that following our approval and signature of that contract, the developers lost the funding for developing this new building at that time. And so there really isn't a point in having the contractual requirement to establish a drainage contract for the city by May 1st, 2025, when there is no plan to build anything at this point. So I asked the TIF attorney, Mr. Bacon, to create language, which is what's before you here, to change the amendment or to create the amendment such that if that land was changed with any impermeable development of any kind, so if it was paved in any way or a building is built or something, at that point, an agreement for the drainage had to be created with the city of North Platte. So if it stays dirt and grass and a few weeds, nothing needs to change. But if something is developed on the site, then it needs to change prior to the development construction beginning. So that's the long and short of the request here. Yes, sir.
Not this last storm we had, but earlier in the spring when we had a storm, I had somebody call me up that lived in them apartments and claimed that they're having drainage problems where they're making them park their cars out front of the building. This drainage problem that we're talking about right now, is that gonna help that drainage problem, or is that a whole separate drainage issue?
So the situation is, had the area that's currently dirt and grass right now been developed into a building or a parking lot or anything that would have generated more water onto the existing lot, would serve to exacerbate the problem that exists today, which is why the whole discussion about coming up with some sort of solution to not further add to the drainage on the existing parking lot. That's why we had the discussion in the first place. So if basically what we're doing today is supporting the status quo of where we are today, but saying if you change anything that would add to the drainage problem, you then have to resolve it. That's basically what we're saying.
So we're not helping the people that live in the apartments with their drainage problem.
That's correct.
I think that's a problem. I really do. If they expect them to not park and they tell them where they have to park and it's flooded, they need to get that fixed. I had another reminder call the other day about the same problem. And we can't keep kicking the can down the road. If they have a problem, they need to get something done with it. And I'm also not very happy with the back end of the way the place looks. They promised us when we extended their tip out that they had all kinds of people wanting to come in. And except for throwing a few patch things on the asphalt, I haven't seen them do a whole, I mean, they've done the stuff out front. But it's like going through night and day. You go through the front, it looks really nice. You get to the back and you look like you're in it just looks terrible. There's weeds growing up. They haven't done anything to make that look nice from the back.
Pete? Rod, I had the same question about the drainage in the main parking lot that you had. I called Brent Berglund up today, our city engineer, and Brent, I wouldn't mind if you would give a brief overview of what you and I talked about on how there are actually two different projects. And I apologize, but I had you prep this once with me on the phone. So how it's two different situations, if you don't mind.
Yeah, there's kind of two things that are going on here. One is the current drainage. If you look at the storm sewer system that was installed with the original mall, that's principally what's being connected and used right now. The pipes and the inlets might have changed location, but the surface drainage, it's actually a little bit less than what it used to be. If you remember the old mall, it went from the front of the building basically all the way to those juniper bushes on the highway was all paved. And there's a little bit of grass. I mean, not a huge amount, but there are some landscape areas. And the low area, the mall lot over time has flooded from what I remember, historically. And so we've looked at a couple different options. That's the big picture, the big stormwater issue. This particular one is dealing with the grass area, the weeds area, the dirt area south, which would be like the Optimus tree area and where the carnival. So this particular part they're talking about is if there's any improvements to that to not exacerbate the problem further. Now, when looking at the drainage issue, which we're talking about with the water backing up, we've talked about a couple different things. That's been probably a 30 to 50 year discussion, I would say probably. And that's something that could be looked at further. But an issue that we get into is that's private property. And if they choose to, however they choose to operate their property, that's something that they have their own engineer that designed it and laid it out and things like that. Those are things that we could look at, with them and see if there's some options. We've talked about some different options, but eventually get into a money discussion at some point to work on that together. But I think that kind of represented what we talked about generic. I mean,
It did.
Was there something else you wanted me to add
No,
to that?
that's the two things that you touched on. These are two separate issues that we have. And we have, Ty was just telling me we had like 17 inches of rain so far this spring. I think, so we've gotten some substantial rains, but these are two separate issues. You got the parking lot and then this, what we're talking about, doesn't affect the parking lot.
No, it would be a separate issue that it shouldn't make it, as the mayor mentioned, it should, the focus would be any improvements to those two spaces
Okay.
are not to make it worse than what it is.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you very much.
But to look at it another way, if I was to build a new building, I have to have a plan of where my water runout's gonna be. So why did we allow them to build on the property if they can't take care of the drainage that's coming off of what they have?
The drainage didn't change and the surface area didn't change. If that,
But they still should have had a plan for their water runoff, just like if they built a brand new building, shouldn't they?
it's not quite exactly the same because they didn't change the interior infrastructure. And there is a part from the standpoint, well, on the city review on the engineering side, we will look at the storm drainage, like storm detention calculations, things like that. But they have their own professional just like the city did not design the foundations of the building or the beams of the building, but there's a code check. So I would put it comparable to that they had their engineer. And with design storms, what you run into is if you had a design storm of, let's just say 2 inches, that we could probably see at what point does the water come out of, and you get into intensity, duration, and also the total accumulation. So if you have a 3-inch rain over 2 days, or if you have a 3-inch rain in 2 hours, there's different impacts. So there is a threshold that at what threshold does it become a problem? And the more water you want to convey, the more expensive it gets. The bigger the pipe. So anyway,
I'm just not blaming nobody. It feels like when the people are calling me, I can't tell them how they can fix it, because I guess the answer is it's a privately owned place and we have no control on it then? Is that what I tell
Those are the facts of the situation.
it's a
I mean, I know it doesn't make anybody feel any better, for certainly, but that is the fact of the situation.
As we go forward with the new mixed-use building, I think we had some discussion somewhere about possibly putting another pipe to the river. If we do that, if we do that, can we tie the existing drainage system in the mall into the additional capacity of a new pipe to get the water to the river? I say they.
If there's an additional pipe put to the river, yes, correct. The options that we've talked about with the developer over time was another pipe to the river, storm detention that is kept, it's basically if we don't like the water standing in the parking lot, you can put underground detention or pipes or some different things that you store it underground so it's not a problem, or the pipe to the river. So there's a few options. That's why this was left a little bit generic. More options could be looked at that time when they do develop it.
Well, back to Rod's comments, I totally agree with you, Rod. And somebody made a mistake, because we've had a problem with water on this site ever since the mall was built. And the people should have known that. And they should have designed the facilities to handle the additional water. And I'm not blaming the city, but we need to have some way to correct that. And I'm hoping that as we look at a new building, that we can make sure that the developer takes care of the water problem that currently exists, so we don't end up with the same problem and no way to fix it.
Go ahead, Red.
So, just so I'm understanding correctly, they're not currently planning to do anything with the storm sewers, the front side of the mall, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding. I haven't heard of anything. Yes.
Gotcha. Because it was my understanding when we were negotiating with this $3.3 million extension to the EPA, that was a big part of it. That was what they were going to try and fix. I think they had $1.9 million allotted towards parking lots and things of that nature. But you don't think they're going to do any of that now?
That's correct. That's my understanding.
So if they, this is my understanding of the contract as I read it, they can access that 100% of that 3.3 million. Would that be a fair statement?
So long as they're following the terms of the amended contract.
And that's, I'm going off of memory, and I'm wrong, keep me honest, but there is several things on things that they could put money into. But there was an agreement in there that they could move those between each category. So technically, they could access all 3.3 million for any of those categories.
I didn't look back at the full amended contract, to be honest. I was just looking at the item before the council tonight is just whether to amend the section 3.08B. I don't have that. I don't have that information off the top of my head. I can look into it and get back to you.
I'm going somewhere with my logic. So, what recourse do we have if they put all $3.3 million? Say they move over to a category that they can, they've already spent the money or something, they move it over and they come up with receipts that basically we're stuck with what we got. Is there any recourse that we have currently that for the current
I don't feel comfortable, like, I don't feel comfortable commenting on that probably tonight. I'd like to look into it further before I comment on that further.
Here's my concern, and this is where I'm going with that. I apologize if I put you on the spot, that was not my intent. If we delete one of the items that says, let me ask this real quick. Did we enter into an agreement by May 1st?
No.
We did not, okay. If we delete one of the items in this contract where they didn't withhold their side of the contract, it gives us one less argument of recourse if they were to spend this $3.3 million in a way that we don't agree with. Does my logic make sense and kind of where I'm going with that? And I agree with you, you probably have to take a look at it to see that. But as I understand the contract, we don't have a lot of recourse with that money to be expended, and we might have just got what we got. And I don't want to give any kind of leverage that we might have if this were to be what we end up with. I don't want to give away something that is useful. Does that make sense? Following my logic at least. Maybe you don't agree with me, that's fine, but am I making sense?
I'm following.
Okay.
Just remember that the agreement was to resolve the drainage issue
Which they're not going to do.
because they don't need to.
Well, they have problems.
No, the drainage issue is specific to the new building.
Right. But are they not going to, they're still going to spend all $3.3 million.
But that's not germane to the building itself.
It is, we don't want them to spend all $3.3 million.
Okay. Ed? go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, what's written in our information here, is this directly out of the contract? It says here, enter into an agreement related to drainage improvements for the real estate comprising the North Platte Mall. That would be the whole mall area. That would not just be the southeast quadrant where they were proposing to put a mixed-use building in. And so I agree with Brad.
If I could just interject.
Sure, Bill.
I don't think it's safe to try to summarize the full content of the amended contract just by going off of some of the summary
And that's true.
in the recitals in what's in front of the council here
Okay.
today. So
Wise guy.
what I'd encourage everyone is if they have specific questions like that, I can look into it. I don't know that I hadn't prepared to be able to speak to those specific questions here tonight.
So I would recommend if you guys have a lot of questions about the substance of the agreement, email them to Bill and then table this item. I don't think it really has to be done today for any reason, so. And then we can have the appropriate answers at the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
There's a
Excuse me.
motion to table. isn't
Second.
there? Second, calling the question on tabling. Sorry, Ed, that ends the discussion, so.
oh, sorry.
Item is tabled to the next meeting. In the continuing theme of tonight, item number 5 is pulled. And item number 6 is pulled by the requester. So we are down to item number 7, in which we will have a public hearing. And the public hearing will be first to consider or to discuss or comments on first reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4203 to amend the City of North Platte Code of Ordinances, sections 156.236 and 156.237, changing sexually oriented businesses from a permitted use in an I-1 light industrial district to a conditional use in an I-1 light industrial district. So I'm opening a public hearing on this subject. If anyone has a comment regarding this, you're welcome to approach this microphone and let us know what your thoughts are.
I move we close public hearing.
Second.
Was that you, Ed, the second?
Yes.
Okay. Motion by Vols, second by Reeker to close the public hearing.
Excuse me.
Calling the question on closing the public hearing, please. Okay, public hearing is closed. Council will now consider item number 7, which is first reading and action on to adopt ordinance number 4203 to amend the City of North Platte Code of Ordinances, sections 156.236 and 156.237, changing sexually oriented businesses from a permitted use in an I-1 light industrial district to a conditional use in an I-1 light industrial district. Go, yes, please.
Ordinance number 4203. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Clinton County, Nebraska, amending chapter 156, zoning section 156.236, permitted uses in section 156.237, conditional uses, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4203 to amend the City of North Platte Code of Ordinances, section 156.236 and 156.237, changing sexually oriented businesses from a permitted use in an I-1 light industrial district to conditional use in an I-1 light industrial district on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. Do we have any discussion on item number 7?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
with the lack of the public interest in this, and I've got no phone calls, I would move to waive the 3 required readings on ordinance number 4203.
We have a motion to waive the 3 readings on item number 7, second by Dye. So motion by Vols, second by Dye to waive the 3 readings. Any discussion on waiving the 3 readings? Yes.
May I ask, do we have any pending applications on this type of business, or are we aware of anything?
Judy? Her answer is no, and we're not aware in the city office.
Second, and with this said, I'm completely in favor of this change. I recall when we put it this way, and as I recall, and Bill, if you feel I need a motion for an executive session on this, just please tell me. But there was, I kind of recall, was there advice or thing from the league, or how did we end up where we are?
So, I can't even remember how long ago this was, but
Been a
this was
while.
quite a while ago. And that was when, clear back when Hastings and Grand Island ended up in some lawsuits
Yes.
over adult-based businesses. At that time, we did have a different attorney. So the attorney's opinions are a little bit different than this attorney's opinions. And at that time, one of the recommendations from the attorney was you have to allow it somewhere. Because if you don't, and you continuously deny a conditional use, you can end up in a lawsuit. But if you guys are good at your job, and somebody that comes in that has a good conditional use and you approve one and deny one, there shouldn't be an issue. And Bill, if you have a different opinion, that's fine.
No, I don't. I think with any conditional use, you need to look at the application that's presented and determine whether it meets the requirements set forth in the zoning regs. And if it does, the problem that the city can get into is if you're denying things arbitrarily as opposed to just following what the regs say. So like Judy said, as long as we're not being arbitrary about enforcing it, I don't have concerns with it being a condition.
So having said that, I guess it's okay to discuss this before we vote on the, okay. What's the motivation for the change?
So I can say that I kind of brought this about. I have received a couple of phone calls from some, how rumors are in the city of North Platte of things going on. And so after talking to those individuals, they had talked a little bit about the lawsuits that happened years ago in Hastings and Grand Island. And I just kind of went to city administration and said, hey, what do you think if I run this by planning commission and see what they think? And it'll just make people feel a little bit better. That's
So
it.
this would make it more restrictive is what you're saying. We'd have to go through another exercise. Right now it's permitted.
Right now, it is permitted only in an I-1 district as long as it meets certain specifications. If you remember right, the adult-based business regulations are very, very specific. So it would be permitted by right in an industrial district only if they meet all of those criteria. So I don't really feel like this is making it any more restrictive because it would still have to meet all of those criteria. But maybe you would have the control to not have it right along a main thoroughfare. That would give you the option to locate it maybe in a little bit better location.
Well, I want to say something really crass, but I won't. My own personal thoughts is I think we ought to make it more restrictive. We've got enough problems with pornography in our culture today. I don't know why in the world we want to make it easier to access it. I guess that's all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, I completely agree that I'm completely in favor of this ordinance, and this makes it significantly more restrictive, which I think is a positive thing. I think it's a positive recommendation. Frankly, I think it's a little aggressive to go through this and without a second look at it. Again, I don't condone this business. I think this is a good cleanup. What if somebody bought land a month ago? How would you, I mean, land purchasers have rights. And so with all due respect, I think the waiver readings could be a little aggressive for this situation, but that's why we all get to vote.
Go ahead, Pete.
And Judy, I saw where planning staff is requesting it in bold print to waive the 3 readings. Your reasoning behind that was it's nothing impending. You don't see anything coming down in the next 2 weeks.
No, the only reason just requesting to waive the 3 readings is because we didn't have anyone speak out for or against at the planning commission. So it was just to save time. But no, there's nothing that I know of that is coming about. I have no indication of anybody planning anything. Nothing.
I'm good. I'll keep my motion as is. We'll see where it goes.
So having said that, how can we make it more restrictive? How can we make it less attractive for somebody to want to put one of these businesses in our town?
I would say from my comfort level, having it as a conditional use is about the best way to do it. Because keep in mind with conditional uses, you can place additional conditions upon the use of the property. So, that could be a condition regarding signage. It could be a condition regarding screening. I mean, there are different ways, and I can't speak to how specifically that would look without knowing specific details about somebody that may come forward with something like this. But that's why the conditional use is, in my opinion, the most attractive way to regulate this type of business.
So can you describe for me, Judy, what section of town would be considered to be I-1 light industrial?
So if you look at that map isn't completely updated. It's kind of an older map, but any of the light gray and dark gray areas. So essentially your industrial parks, out towards the beef plant, down Front Street, which gets a little nerve wracking for some people to have it located down Front Street, but it's basically on your outskirts of town. But that's where most of your industrial areas are. Now, there are a few areas of town that are inside, specifically you look on the north side, there's some industrial areas that are surrounded by residential. We will get a new updated map, but the industrial portion hasn't changed a lot.
So the facility that we currently have in town right now, I don't know if that meets this qualification or not. Never been in it, probably won't be, but is it in an I-1 light industrial district?
No, and I took a lot of heat for that one when that happened. Brings back a lot of memories. But that one, there is a portion of the current ordinance that states, I believe it's if only 25% of your floor area is dedicated to toys, paraphernalia, trying to do this without embarrassing myself, then you do not qualify as a adult-based business.
So you're not
And-
talking about Hasbro toys, I take it.
No. No, I am not. So, so that's how they kind of got to locate where they were. There was a very large disagreement that they were not far enough away from the church, but by dictating that their floor area, only 25% of it was related to actual toys, things like that, whereas the rest of it is lingerie that you could sell at Walmart, you know, things like that, then they kind of got around the regulations.
So having said that, I presume they still have to comply with that regulation. Are they?
Correct. I can't tell you that because the way that the ordinance is written, it's the police department that has to go in and inspect their facility from time to time. So they're the ones that have the responsibility. I've never been in there, so I can't tell you honestly. But it would be the police department that has that responsibility of inspecting that to see if they do meet that floor area requirement.
Might be a good place to pay a visit.
Okay, I'm going to steer the group back to the ordinance because that's what we're talking about is, are we going to make this change to the ordinance? And actually specifically what we're talking about is, are we going to waive the 3 readings? So let's deal with waiving the 3 readings. And then if we want to discuss more, let's do that because we're getting kind of off target here. So, okay.
On this subject of waiving 3 readings, I'm gonna agree with Ty. I think giving this a couple more votes is, or, yeah, just gives a chance for people to stand up. Maybe, you know, we all follow this very closely, you know, pay attention, so some other people may not. So I'm gonna vote against that, but I'm in favor of this.
Calling the question on waiving the 3 readings. Doesn't require 5. No, requires 6. Okay, motion fails.
It'd have to.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we're back to the original discussion on the item. So Rod, I think you were going to say something.
If this was passed today, would they have been able to build there then? Still with the stipulation of what you just talked about, they could still build there even if we had this passed.
Correct. Yes.
So I think it's relevant to think about this change makes pretty much all the zoning districts the same with regard to this type of business. So. Okay, other comments or questions on the original question? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 7.
Are we tabling it? I'm sorry, that was the other one. Sorry.
Okay. Passed. That was quick, MJ. Almost didn't see it. So, okay. All right, another public hearing.
Okay.
Adopt the resolution regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska micro-TIF blight and substandard study for Danlex Property Group, LLC, for property located at 1404 and 1420 Rodeo Road as prepared by the City of North Platte and approval of related actions. Opening the public hearing on this item. If you'd like to make a comment, please approach the microphone and tell us who you are, what your address is, and we'll be happy to hear your comment. Not getting a high degree of public engagement in tonight's meeting.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Reeker to close the public hearing. Calling the question on closing the public hearing, please. Public hearing is now closed. Council will now consider adopt a resolution regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska micro TIF blight and substandard study for Danlex Property Group LLC for property located at 1404 and 1420 Rodeo Road as prepared by the City of North Platte and approval of related actions. Lane? Oh, there's not an ordinance. Never mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
To adopt a resolution that's presented in council materials regarding the City of North Platte, Nebraska micro-TIF blight and substandard study, Danlex Property Group LLC, prepared by the City of North Platte, approval of related actions.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by McNew. Discussion. Oh, Judy, you want to tell us what we're doing here?
So this is an area of town that, this used to be a hotel. It's right by the Quick Stop up on Rodeo Road. And it has turned into an extended stay hotel. The current owner came to me asking about, what types of programs that he could possibly use to clean this area up, repair it, and turn it into essentially just apartments. And so I talked to him a little bit about, different types of funding options. We don't have a lot. Micro TIF was one of those options that he did ask about. Looked into it, and this area is currently not designated as blighted and substandard, but it does meet the year criteria for being in the city limits for a certain number of years, the year of the original structure. And so he decided to go ahead and try to go through the process and do this micro blight that we've done in the past with a couple of others. He will look at coming back with a micro TIF application. That application will be at the next, if this is approved, will be at the next city council meeting. And he's going to ask for a little over 250,000, I believe, to do some improvements as far as some interior remodel type improvements. Concrete, he said one of the things that's a big issue out there is sewer lines, infrastructure improvements. So, anything
Judy,
else?
would you just remind us real quick, the blighting in micro TIF is slightly different than the blighting in regular TIF. So would you?
That is correct. So it goes through a very similar process. You still have to have the referral from council, which you did a few weeks ago, goes to planning commission. If you look through the document that you were provided, there are certain criteria that has to be met in order to, just like a typical blight study, only it's a smaller area. One of the big differences in not necessarily the blight study, but in TIF versus micro TIF is an if not but for, because as you can see, there is currently some construction going on. They don't have to establish the if not but for when it comes to micro TIF. Otherwise, you still hold the public hearings, and your responsibility in this, again, similar to a regular blight study, is to determine if you think this area meets the standards of blight and substandard.
Does it add, that will add to our percentage?
Correct. It will add to our percentage. It's such a small acreage, which is 2.08 acres. And I think I have on here that it's not going to currently change the percentage of where we're at. I think we're at 21.05% or something. I can't find it right here. But we're at 21.4% right now, and just adding that additional 2 acres will not change that percentage. 35 is the cap.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So as I think about micro TIF and blighting of very specific 2 parcels of land, to me, we're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at a zoning change possibly and a micro TIF application potentially, right?
This one, it is in a B2 district. You can by conditional use, so they would have to come back more than likely with a conditional use. I was still going to talk to the attorney about that a little bit because it is currently an extended stay. And I don't know where he's going to fall with that decision, but yes, there may be a conditional use that's going to come back here.
Micro TIF is not an expensive application, right? Like regular TIF is?
No. So the micro blight study, we charge $500. The micro TIF application is $50. And that's the maximum allowed by state statute.
I just say I wouldn't have any problem approving a bigger parcel of land, multiple owners and all that. But if we're going to do one parcel, it'd be nice to know to me, it'd be nice to know the project. So I'm not against blighting this at all. To me, it clearly meets the definition, but I don't understand why they wouldn't want to fill out the application at the same time.
I've got it.
Okay.
I just did not provide it to you because you can't really act on that micro TIF until the blight and substandard is over. But what they have in here is that they are going to put in new sewer lines, update the freshwater plumbing as needed, structural repairs and replacement. They're going to do some new concrete, new fixtures, new appliances, clean up around the area, some maintenance, and some exterior rehab. They've got a total estimated cost to them as around $250,000.
What happens if their conditional use permit fails?
Then they would not get the micro TIF because you probably could not award it to a project that is not allowed by zoning. Or we'd have to come back and try to rezone it to like a residential.
Again, I don't have any issues with this project. That sounds like a great cleanup, but it's a little, to me, it's a little disjointed on an individual parcel to have the components that separated, but I don't know if this is that big a deal. Curious how others feel about that.
Could they change, so if we blight this and they conditional use fails or something, could they, because they still have to establish the increased value, to get the tip, correct?
Correct.
Could they then use that same tip bond if they just move long-term stays? If they
I think well, that would be tough.
And micro tip is not a tip on as a traditional tip. It's a
Right.
And I think part of that depends on how it would be assessed by the county too. So it's hard for us to say in the narrow scope of what it is that we look at with micro. Because could they go through the project and improve the property? Absolutely. Could they use it for just any purpose that they would want to? Not unless it meets the zoning regulations. So that affects their income stream off of it, not necessarily their property tax assessment.
And in the future, if we do another one of these, if you want the micro TIF application on the same agenda, I have no issue doing that. I was just trying to do it, get it approved prior to coming forward. So.
And I think to Councilman Lucas's point, I think micro TIF maybe is a little bit disjointed in that sense because I feel like we can't move forward with a micro TIF application unless the property is blighted.
Yeah.
And so that's why we developed the process the way that we have. It's because of the way that I interpret the statute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that makes some sense as I'm thinking about it. I mean, what I'm thinking about is, okay, we blight it, they stop, and all of a sudden they just potentially enhance the value of a very small piece of property, not a neighborhood. In other words, we're not targeting development to a big neighborhood. I'm all for that. That's the risk. But if you've got an application pending and they've got a plan, I have no issues. I understand your point too, Bill. Yeah, I suppose you could look at that both directions. This is the blighting of individual parcels is a new process for us.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to think that through a little bit. No, thank you, Bill.
Other comments or questions? Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Judy, did you say that their expected total costs for the rehab, so to speak, of this structure was $280,000?
I personally think they're a little bit low, but that is what they've estimated the costs that are going to be eligible expenses for a micro TIF program. They have it estimated at just a little over $250,000. What they've put in their application is they are estimating that their property value, once they have it, their assessed value, once they have it completed, would be around $700,000. But again, that's kind of a guesstimate. We don't assess the property. I guess it's going to depend on what they end up with.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 8, please. Item number 8 is passed. Item number 9, approve the claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay the current claims.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley. Calling the question and approving the claims, please. Claims are approved. Public agenda requests. We respect our city employees' request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Anyone has an agenda request item, please approach the microphone and let us hear it. Mr. Rieger?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
We have the second. Okay, motion by Rieger, second by Dye. Calling the question on adjournment. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.